Gerry Ryan, the Ryan Line on 2FM, Ireland's number one.
Let's see, we'll start off with Ed. Ed, good morning to you.
Morning, Gerry. How are you?
Very good. Back in 1983, you emigrated to Spain.
I did, yeah. I went in on a 30-day visa. Now, this is before Spain joined the EU.
Yeah.
Or the EEC as it was then. But for me to secure a residence permit and a work permit, I had to supply a clearance certificate from the Gardaí in Ireland through the Irish Embassy stating that I had no convictions in Ireland.
Yeah, well, I can perfectly understand that. Now, of course, it would seem that, if you were coming from Spain to here anyway, that you wouldn't be required to be doing anything.
Yeah, but you have to register in Ireland as a resident. Do
you?
I think all EU...
If you come from the EU and with the free movement of labour and all that kind of stuff, I don't think you have to do anything.
I was under the impression you had to register as a resident.
Well,
that was my impression.
Do you know what? You've raised another issue. Let's check that out.
And if that is the case, and you have to register
as a resident,
you should then be obliged to supply a certificate stating you have no convictions in your.
For instance, yesterday somebody was saying to me, does this mean, if you commit a crime or if you make a mistake that there's no atonement? No, I'm not saying that for a minute. There are plenty of us who've done things that we regretted throughout our lives, and you hope for forgiveness. You hope that you have been able to atone for your crime. And there are certainly people walking the streets with convictions who are decent people, who made a mistake, who went wrong in life, and who are now utterly trustworthy and have paid their price for their failures and have paid their debt to society. And those people should always be given consideration and should be seen positively. But there are certainly people who are dangerous. There are certainly people who are a threat. And I believe we've every right to be able to assess that threat.
I think violent crimes or crimes against children or crimes
terrorism.
Like that, terrorism, they should all be taken into account. And ththese people should not be allowed to be resident in this country. And
our police force and our security force and our intelligence community should be able to take you aside. I'm not suggesting that people should be taken off to some sort of concentration camp and kept there, or that we should have Guantanamo Bay or anything like that. But I don't see any reason why, if you have previous convictions, that you shouldn't be at least taken aside and a conversation had to see if it was serious enough for further investigation into your background to be conducted. At the moment, you walk through American immigration, if you've done anything, right? If you have a criminal conviction and it is accessible by the American intelligence or security community, they will have note of that. A red flag will come up. And they will ask you the appropriate questions. But I have also been with people who have, for instance, somebody who was caught smoking dope or something when they were a kid, right, 20 or 30 years ago. Now, what they don't say to you is you're never getting into the United States again. They will figure out whether this is a crime that has been dealt with, whether this is something that's significant now or not, and they will make a judgment call on it. They may even make that judgment call as you're standing there, but at least somebody is in a position to make that call.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, Ed, thank you for that. Katie, good morning.
Morning, Gerry. How are you? I'm
good. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Right.
Now, Katie, you were attacked recently in Athlone.
I was one of the women from the Bunny Valley Bridge attacks.
What happened?
Basically, I was just walking home with my friend from a nightclub, basically on the road, and I just happened to sit in the wall for a few minutes, and I was dragged up into an area of the Bunny Valley Bridge and attacked. And I was beaten very badly, and basically he ran off. I was lucky. I was very, very lucky. But since that, as there's been a couple of other attacks as well.
Yeah.
But we can't find this person who did it, and it angers me that he's been able to come in here and do this to the women. Not just like the women we know about as three, but we don't know where he is now or what he's doing now. But he's still a great danger to the women out there still, you know what I mean? But
Katie, can you remember what he looked like?
I can remember what he looked like, yeah. I can't say basically whether he was foreign or not, but we do have reason to believe that he is.
Why do you believe that?
It's just, I don't know. It's just a couple of things that happened afterwards that we led us to believe. I can't really say because it's not my place to say with the cases really, with the other women's cases. But it's just.
But there were similarities between other attacks and yours.
Yeah, we believe that it was the same man. Yeah.
And have the guards been successful in any sense of
no, nothing
of the
at
word?
all. Nothing at all. It's like he's just dropping down out of the sky and going back up again.
How many attacks has he carried out, Katie?
Well, 3 that have been reported.
Or 3 that you guys believe are linked? Yeah.
Definitely linked. There's no doubt about it that it's the same man. But where he is now, we don't know. But he shouldn't have been here in the first place. He shouldn't have been allowed to do this in the first place, Gerry. It's like he was like you were saying yesterday. What you were trying to say yesterday about. I heard some people were ringing in saying there should be some sort of a scanning thing done where we can actually, and it's true. Like people are trying to say that it would take a lot of time, it would delay people's flights.
Why do you believe, Katie, that this guy would have had previous convictions? Do you?
When I was attacked, I did say he'd done it before because of the nature, the way he did it, and he was very professional about how he did it. I was thinking if this was just out of the blue, there's no way. You know, he knew what he was doing. He knew where he was bringing me to. He knew the area, and I knew he'd do. I did say he'd do it again, and it did happen again. But I'm not saying anything about the guards, and they've been great help, great support. But it's like, you know, they were it's like a once-off kind of a thing people were looking at, and then it wasn't until the second 2 attacks that people started to think, oh, yeah, there is a danger with this man.
And what do you think's happening here? It sounds like somebody who may not actually live in Athlone, but who goes hunting there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was who's going to be sitting like that time of the morning, you know.
Has this affected your friends and obviously yourself in terms of whether you go out at night and where you go?
Oh, definitely.
You're probably very nervous being unaccompanied.
Oh, yeah. Well, I won't go anywhere on my own now. Daytime. I do try and, you know, kind of get on with things, but it is very hard to get on with things. It does have a big effect on your whole personality, your trust, in anybody. Every time I'm out, if I'm in a pub or anywhere, every fella that walks into the pub, I'm like, you know, looking at them, going, "Is that him? Is that him?" This is the way I'm going to be now until he's caught. But he's not going to be caught because he's moved on. You know, if he was caught before all this, the place he should have been caught at was at Customs up in Dublin.
Well, that's
where he should have been caught.
But that's presuming that he did have a previous conviction. I mean, this might be one of the worst kind, you know, the guys who are not caught.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite easy to move at will wherever he wants to go.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we will never have a situation where a member of An Garda Síochána or indeed the immigration authorities will be able to look at somebody and go, that fella looks a bit dangerous, we're not allowing him in. But if he had, I mean, you're saying that you feel, your instinct is that you think he might have been arrested maybe for something similar before, and if he had been, maybe he was convicted. I mean, it's a reasonable point. Did he try to sexually assault you?
He did, yes, he did. The first inclination, not the guards, but people, you know, I know the finger was pointing at a mugging kind of a thing, and a couple of people said it to me, "Oh, I heard you were mugged," and I'm like, I wasn't mugged. I know, I had my money, I had my jewellery, I had my phone, everything was left with me. Nothing was taken from me, and this man was not after anything like that, basically. He was out there to harm women. He just has, it's just judging by the beating he gave me, the beating he gave the other women. He has a problem with women.
What exactly did he do to you?
He just threw me into the ditch, and he kept beating me up, and my whole left side of the face, my eye was closed for 2 days. He just very badly, I was left very badly bruised and beaten, and I was sent to hospital, but I was let go, let out that night. You know what I mean? I was one of the lucky ones, basically, but I was still very shook up. And at the time, you do think like, oh, this is it now. But I did fight back, and the reason why he didn't get any further was because I did fight back. And I had no other choice but to do that, basically.
And Katie, did he say anything to you during the attack?
Nothing at all.
Not a word.
Not a word. And I was shouting and screaming at him, and he was looking at me as if to go, like, what are you saying? You know, that sort of a way. But my point is, Gerry, that I know my heart, and I know he was foreign, but we can't prove it because we can't find him. We can't, you know what I mean? We can't, but he, like you're saying, he had to have convictions to get caught at the airport, but I believe he has done this before, and he probably has been caught, because why is he here? Why is he not in his own country? He's obviously been caught at something. He's had to leave his country for some reason.
Have you spoken to the other women who were attacked, have you?
Well, I believe so, he had, in his own language.
No, but have you spoken to them?
Have I? I have, yeah, to one of them.
Yeah.
But,
and were the two of you able to figure out that this was the same guy?
Well, yeah, we know it was the same guy. It's all in the one area, Gerry. It happened both in the same spot.
Whereabouts is that now?
It's just in Athlone, in Bunny Valley area of Athlone. It's just down the road from the college, basically.
And is it a remote part? Is it away from the beaten track?
Yeah, there's no lights there. There's no lights in the area. There's lights along the road. I was sitting on the main road. That's why I thought I'd be safe, because there's plenty of taxis going up and down, but he just picked his time, like, you know, when there was no taxis, nothing, and it was just a quiet time, like, that he picked. And, like, my friend was just down around the corner, basically, and, like, she didn't hear nothing either. He was very clever and very calculated, and that's how I believe he must have done something like this before. But we'll never know that unless he's found. You know what I mean? Like,
how long ago did this happen?
To me, it was in August. In
August.
Yeah.
And have you spoken recently with the guards about it? Do you know where they are in terms of their investigation?
Well, the guards, they've been trying to find him, but they don't come to me unless unless there's something to tell me, which they've nothing to tell me.
And at the moment, there's nothing.
At the moment, there's nothing.
You must find that very disturbing.
It is.
What does it feel like, the thought that he's still out there?
It's very frightening. It's very hard because there's so many newcomers in the country now in Athlone as well. It's very hard to go out and relax. You can't relax, you know. It's very hard to relax, and on the way home, if you're waiting for a taxi, trying to get a taxi is kind of like it is a hard situation basically to live with.
No, it's an awful situation for you to be in. Look, I hope they're successful.
Well,
and
I know,
because I can tell by your tone of voice, unless this fella's caught, you will not rest easy.
No, there won't be until he's caught, and he's probably moved on. He's probably somewhere, but it's not going to help It's not going to help us, and it's not going to help.
Finally, what did he look like? Can you describe him to us?
Well, basically, the photo of it has been shown on Crime Line, and that is the photo of it that I did up for Crime Line.
Can you describe what he looked like to us, though?
Yeah, he was tall. He was tall enough. Like, he wasn't really tall, but he was tall enough, and he would have had kind of short brown hair. And he was aged between 26 and 30, in around that age, that sort of a way. But it shouldn't have happened. Basically, like, everything that's been going on the last 2 days, like, over this man that was jailed, it shouldn't have happened to that poor woman either.
Okay, Katie, you take care of yourself, and I mean that literally. Take care of yourself. God bless and take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gerry. Bye.
Simon, good morning.
Gerry, how are you?
Very good. And we're going back to this whole issue of security at our ports and airports. And the question, which is yet to be fully answered, what the actual protocols are in terms of accessing information about people entering this country, whether you're an EU citizen or not. You're a trainee pilot, I gather.
I am.
Okay, and you've been listening to the discussion?
I have. I find Dublin Airport, it's very funny because anytime I travel every week. I fly over to London every week, and it's a joke. And once, probably, I can remember in the last 4 months I've been asked for my passport. Once. It's more so that, and again, don't take this the wrong way, or any of the listeners take this the wrong way. It's more is if you're not Caucasian, you're asked for your passport, and if you don't look Irish.
So you're saying if you're black, you're going to be asked for your passport. If you're Chinese, you're going to be asked for your passport. If you're Arabic, if you're Egyptian, you're going to be asked for your passport.
Yeah, I know. Like, again, don't take me up as sounding
No,
racist
well, I presume, for some, that's a kind of rule of thumb. It's a way of dealing with it. But you've never been asked for your passport.
Once I can remember, maybe.
But are you wearing a pilot's uniform?
No. Well, when you're wearing a pilot's uniform, you're never asked, ever. But even when I travel in normal civilian clothes, I'm never asked. Ever. Even
going into the UK?
Oh, no, different. No, I'm only talking about going into Ireland.
Coming into Ireland?
Every other airport I'm asked all the time. It's just pure protocol. But over here, it's as if Passport Control will stand there, have a good look at you as you walk up.
No, but you know the way that you go through... See, I'm finding this very confusing. The system now is that you walk up to segregated booths.
Yeah.
We have different channels, and you have to stand...
There's one for EU, non-EU, yeah.
And you also have to stand behind the line until you're called. That's my experience. And then when you're called, you walk up, you hand your passport, and you walk through. Are you saying that you just walk through?
Yeah. It's more like you have your passport in your hand, and you're just about to open it, and you just wave you through.
Okay, right.
No, truthfully. I know it sounds hilarious, but anyone can get into the country if they look semi-Irish. It's like he has a good look and says, yeah, you have red hair, freckles, you're Irish, go ahead. It is. It's stupid. I think that security in the country is terrible. I mean, it's different. Leaving the country, it's gas. Everything's checked. And,
everything is checked before you go airside because they've got to try and, they've got fairly high standards in terms of making sure that you're not carrying on board any weapons or a bomb.
Yeah. Hopefully never today.
Okay, now, so you're coming normally from the UK.
Yeah.
Are you mingled in with other international passengers?
Yeah. Well, I mean, depending on what flights have landed recently.
Okay.
It wouldn't be the best, really. I travel to loads of different airports all the time.
And what is your experience at other airports? Can you give us examples?
Well, I suppose it's depending on. I suppose if you fly Ryanair, you fly to all different kinds of airports.
Yeah.
But it's Passport Control is very strict. I mean, you could take on a plane that would hold 130, 140 people. I mean, you'd wait for maybe 20, 30 minutes sometimes to get through Passport Control. Mm-hmm. I mean, which is good. Of course, you don't want to let anybody into their country. But I just relax the daisy here. It is. Now, again, like I said, security's very good, of course, getting onto the plane. They don't want anything like that.
No, and that seems to function very well. But I'm just wondering, what we haven't had explained to us, and we're yet to find anybody who's actually willing to ask the questions, and what we're yet to have explained to us is what is the rules and regulations, because there's been a lot of investment in terms of the physical presence of the guards and the immigration authorities. There is a much greater presence, there's much more facilities there. We're just trying to find out what's behind the wall in terms of protocol and rules. And even though I have had no other experience other than being asked for my passport, genuinely, no other experience other than being asked for it, the number of phone calls that we're getting from people like you is actually a little bit on the worrying side. All right, Simon, thank you for that. 1850 715 922. And honestly, we have not been able to get nobody who will come on air from either the guards or immigration or the Department of Justice or Dublin Airport Authority or whoever. There's nobody who seems to be available at the moment who'll come on air to tell us what the protocols are, what the rules and regulations are, and what the law is, and what the potential is. That was another thing that we were asking about. Okay, if there aren't clear guidelines at the moment as to the way that you're meant to conduct these inquiries when people are entering the country, if the immigration guys who are, you know, at the cutting edge of it, if they were given the green light to go ahead and check people as they were coming through from an electronic point of view, do they have the ability to do that? I mean, do they have the equipment there to do that? Well, we haven't had an answer to that either.
19 to 92. Gerry Ryan on 2FM.
Why do women's relationships with each other often end in bitterness and dispute? Sisters are frequently at each other's throats, practically from birth. Female colleagues are often at war with one another, and even best friends sometimes feel the need to have a little bitch about each other. The Height Report on women loving women, and no, it's not that kind of love, so lads, you can throw cold water on yourselves, by best-selling, Freudian slip there, best-selling author Cher Height, looks at the relationships between women and why they often turn sour. Our own Jenny Houston, a woman, has been looking at the report and joins me now in studio. And I'm becoming increasingly fascinated the older I get with this area.
Yeah, she touches on a few things that are a little uncomfortable and a few things that might be common sense, but because she's articulated them, that's why they suddenly go, of course, well, that makes perfect sense. But it's interesting. I mean, she's, initially Cher became famous. I mean, she sold 50 million copies worldwide of her 1976 report, which was a nationwide study of female sexuality. So she's completely changed tack now, and she's moved on from sex to kind of interpersonal relationships between women. And she's kind of wondering, why are women their own worst enemies? And she goes into sections. She talks, why do sisters fight? Are older and younger women and pretty and plain women automatically rivals? Which is an interesting one. Are married and single women, or why married and single women can't be friends? And I thought, oh, surely that's not true. Why mothers criticize their daughters' hairstyles. Now that one I think is a goldmine of kind of, fascinating information. And then finally, why women hate working for other women. And they're all kind of slightly touchy subjects because I don't think women like to be totally honest either with themselves about it or out loud about some of these things.
Well, let's lay some background for particularly so that men listening, continue to be involved in the conversation. As a man, as you get older, as I've gotten older, what I notice is that men tend to retain relationships. I mean, if you look at Me, You and Dupree, there's a perfect example of it in the movie. Men retain relationships with fellas who have personalities and personality failings and faults that would make them appear dysfunctional in the eyes of many others, but yet they will view them as still pretty much the same guy that they knew back in college or even in primary or secondary school, and you can maintain that friendship. It can be restarted at any time, or it might even continue, and you will tend to accept the guy on his terms rather than your terms. Women do not do that. They have women for certain periods in their life for certain reasons. I think that's what this is saying.
Well, it certainly does touch on that with the why married and single women can't be friends scenario, and it talks about the fact that really in that scenario that most married women have married friends and most single women have mainly single friends, which is it does hint around that, and she sort of asked the question, well, is that because, people that work in the same profession often have friends, from the same profession, as simple as that, or people from the same social background, and is it as simple as that literally, but she's...
Is it like being in the gun club? Strange fellows can come together under, one flag. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I mean...
Maybe it is as simple as that.
Well, it's funny because, I've got friends that are married, friends that are in common law relationships, and friends that are single, and I think it depends on your commitment to the friendship, whether or not it works, frankly. But she says that it is by far the most common complaint when it comes to women's relationships is that women will all too easily drop their female friends when they get involved with a man. And certainly I hear that from every friend I've ever had. One friend will have... a heartbreaking story, and it is really one of loss about losing a friend when they were ditched.
But you don't even have to have a man come into your life to get rid of a friend. I mean, women drop friends like they drop their stockings. I mean, I think they really do. Now, maybe, I'm not saying that that's wrong. Maybe men would be a lot better off if they did that. But I think women make very clear-cut decisions about things. Oh, she's a liar.
Well, I
You
suppose
know?
it depends on the friendship and the category of friendship. I mean, some people are friends sort of for life and are sort of best friends and only have a couple of close friends. I think sometimes when you have a larger sort of social fear, then sometimes you do drop some of your social
Do you want to start
connections.
with sisters? Because I think
Yeah,
let's start in the
absolutely.
crib.
And what Cher Height, in her experience, she says that girls have to fight for their love within a family in a way that boys never or rarely do. And you kind of go, can't she say that? That's a bit controversial. But that's what she's saying, is that she personally feels that girls have to fight for love. And she says you often hear the comment that there are too many girls in a family. And I have heard that comment. Or that, of course, the father wanted a boy, but a girl is nice too. And it's that that slightly sort of niggling, undermining thing of, well, 4 girls, we tried. We only wanted 3, but we thought we'd try one more time for a boy. But, sure, you know,
So
4
what is
girls.
that saying? What is that saying? So if you, I mean, my take on mothers and their daughters and sons is that they can become friends eventually with their daughters, quite good pals, or they see them as competition and they are in conflict with them. Sometimes forever. Their sons become little mini boyfriends. And then they go through all the same letdowns that you have with your boyfriend. He was late, he didn't turn up, he was rude. And then they try to, because a girlfriend can't pull the control card as easily as a mother can. A mother will then pull, you've let down your mother's stroke girlfriend.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very complex.
It is, and I mean the thing about sisters. I mean, they talk. She talks about that love families have for girls can be limited. One little girl is often considered cute, a nice decoration, but more than that, well, and she talks about the fact that sometimes 2 sisters are pitted against each other. One is cuter, or one is smarter, or one is stupid. Again, sort of like leading to painful fighting. Another point, which may seem minor at first, but I think you'll agree with me that it's not, is that when girls reach puberty, they tend to be confined to the house more than their brothers. While sisters are cooped up in the house because a girl can get into trouble, shouldn't be allowed to roam the streets, all that sort of stuff. And it still holds true. The parents seem very reluctant to let their girls roam freely as teenagers in a way that they'll happily let their boys roam freely. And what that means and the ramifications of that is that girls are cooped up in the house an awful lot more. Sisters are, and it gives them more time and reason to argue at home because they're fighting for space. Yeah. So that's one of the first things that causes problems between sisters. And sisters, as you were talking about, have kind of 2 distinct parts to the relationship. The part where they're young and live at home together, where they may have really dramatic ups and downs, and the part where they leave home when they become emotionally closer, mainly because they're physically more separated.
Yeah, I think as a girl breaks out and gets her own boyfriend, begins to get her own space and her own life, and begins to become a princess and then a queen in her own domain, she's less of a threat to her mother. I think the sisters are threats to one another. I think there's a huge battle that goes on between mum and the girls as well. And does anybody actually get anything positive out of that? And does she tell us anything how you can benefit from understanding
I
this?
guess
this huge energy,
Yeah, I think what she really kind of wants to highlight and help us to understand, and that maybe we can look at it differently, is that that sisters fight for status or position in family. I mean, brothers might do it as well, but sisters particularly, because you're pitted against each other, and anybody out there with a sister probably knows deep down when they were growing up who the smart one was, who the sporty one was, who the pretty one was. We all know. And that's the thing, is that we see our siblings through the eyes mainly of our parents, and we know what they think about us. So we know what our status is within the family. So when a sister finds themselves marginalized, they'll try to react by trying to be either extremely good, or they'll go to the offensive to prove that they're smarter than their sister, or attempt to protect themselves by never doing anything foolish or letting the other put anything over on them. And, sisters try to fight for position. And that, in the end result, that, Cher Height thinks that most, the best friends are much closer than sisters, and that, and her research shows that, and that although best friends can break up, while sisters rarely dismiss each other entirely from their lives, but they do tend to kind of be closer. And what she's saying, the only kind of gem of advice that she sort of says, is that sisters today need to look at each other anew, to speak to each other, and to try to overcome the labels that were put on them through childhood, and to kind of establish a new relationship that's separate to the family view of them.
So really, I think, is she saying that, your best friend that you made outside at work or at college is possibly, in fact, more than likely going to be it's going to be a stronger relationship. and that you're more likely to go to bat for her than you would be for your sister. Whereas boys have a real comradeship thing going with your brother.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they're not forced to compete in the same way, or maybe they're not seen to compete in the same way. I don't know, because she.
But there's also a leadership that takes place with brothers. It becomes very evident, you know, that one guy's in charge and he's taking the other guys with him, and it's very hunting group. You know, you are working together. You do work together.
It's
and
interesting.
Like my two brothers are very different to me, but we're a strong group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she basically is implying that there isn't enough love for all the girls. One girl in a family gets to be the princess and is spoiled rotten. But usually if a girl is spoiled, there's only one of them. And it's kind of upsetting to read that. But I mean, well, one only has to look to places like China to know that you know, a woman's value is sometimes lesser in this world. And we don't want to admit that might still be the case. But perhaps there are still some hang-ups, you know, some leftovers from Victorian times where that is the case. And she moves on then to, are older and younger women and pretty and plain women automatically rivals? And you kind of go, oh boy, you know, and you think, ooh, touchy. And she asks women, when you're entering a room, do you immediately notice whether you are prettier, plainer, older or younger than the other women there? Do you feel guilty if you're prettier or younger than women around you and get more attention from men? Do you feel depressed if you're not as attractive? And you kind of go, oh boy. And she says that though women hate to admit it, they still judge each other on looks, age and sex appeal. And they are relieved when other women
don't look as well.
Exactly.
Now, that is true, isn't it?
Reluctantly, possibly, yes.
Yeah, okay, so we'll accept that's true. What does it do? Does it actually do the things that Gerry says? Does it actually create a barrier to you relating well to somebody who's prettier than you or younger than you?
Yeah, fundamentally it pits you against each other in a competitive way, in the same way that sisters are pitted against each other, women are pitted against each other based on attractiveness and age, which automatically then will lead to mother-daughter problems. She says a woman can be put in a tough position. She wants to dress up, she likes the positive attention she gets from looking good, but on the other hand, she may risk alienating other women. So what do? There's no right answer. Basically, you're kind of no-win. In our culture, sexual rivalry, it's encouraged. And I mean, it's encouraged between daughters and mothers, younger women and older women. And the thing about this is that so long as these kind of stereotypes exist, her question is, can younger women look forward to growing up or to getting older? Or will she just have to try desperately to keep looking younger, which is where we're at? Yeah,
because I'm going into the jungle and the best way to stay happy and survive and get what I want in the jungle is to be camouflaged, i.e. stay looking young.
Yeah, and we are. I mean, we talked about it just the other day, how to dress younger. I mean, we're obsessed with it, all the TV
But where
programs.
does this come from? You know, because it's, you know, I even noticed there a few moments ago you were saying, well, is this some kind of throwback to Victorian stereotyping? In other words, is there a vague hint that this is something to do with men? Where does this come from? Well, or is it an internal mechanism that women cannot but pursue?
I don't think it's internal. I think that maybe, feminism kicking in when it did. I think the thing is that it hasn't settled yet. We're not totally there yet, and we probably don't want to admit that at core, women are still really competing with each other, and women still, I think, deep down, think that they have to get ahead of their sisters, be that literally genetic sisters or their fellow girlfriends, you know, their other women. And in the workplace, this is where it really comes to the fore. And she really touches on it there, that women tend to align themselves with men.
We're talking about girls, sibling rivalry, sisterhood fighting, competing against mom, competing against somebody who's prettier, who's younger. And we're asking, at this moment in my personal belief, the unanswerable, where does this come from? Is it a drive that's inside? I mean, should there only ever be one woman? I mean, in the cave, did all the other weaker girls get chucked out and only the strong, pretty one remained? I mean, possibly even mum was kicked out. I don't know. But, where does it come from? I don't believe we've an answer to that. But we do know that Gerry has identified these rivalries and this continuing competition. And in the workplace, you're saying it's the worst.
Well, I think it's certainly, it's a problem. When she spoke to female bosses, most complained that female assistants and secretaries often believe that there's more status in working for a man and that they hold their female bosses in less esteem. And you kind of go, I wonder if I've seen that myself. And I'd have to say, yes, arguably, I think that I have seen that women have trouble working for other women, that they would prefer to work for a man, or that they are more comfortable.
What do you believe is, what's going on there?
Well,
because there's got to be a reason for it. And it can't be just, you can't go...
Can it not just be society?
Men have hypnotised them. That can't be the reason.
No, I think it is societal, though. I think it's the way you're raised. I think it's everything. I think it stems, whether it's from childhood, sister's role or women's role within a family and all the way on. But, I mean, what she talks about, like the misunderstandings that come from that, is that after woman boss makes her assistant's working decisions pleasant. So basically, if you're a nice female boss, so you're a nice boss, you treat your staff well, your assistants well, you make their life comfortable, the assistant confuses their relationship with one of being girlfriends. So that automatically, if you're nice, well, then I get to talk to you about my boyfriend problems, or I get to tell you that, oh, I've got my period, I've got cramps. I mean, can you imagine a female assistant or secretary telling their male boss that they have their menstrual cycle?
No.
They just wouldn't do it. And a woman boss has to put up with that crap, and they do think it's crap. And that's kind of what they're saying to Cher Height in all these interviews, that consistently, if they're nice, then their position, that niceness is abused and is taken for granted, and they're suddenly meant to be, best friends. And if all of a sudden the female boss doesn't want to be in the best friend role, that they're considered a bitch.
And then you've got the undermining of the authority.
Exactly. So this one woman quoted, she said, I work for a large public relations department. I have 2 secretaries. I have to keep on top of them all the time. I even have to scream at them sometimes because they just don't hop to it like they would if I were a man. They're capable of being efficient, but they start to think I'm just a friend when I'm too nice or understanding. One even tells me when she has her period, and the other tells me about the fight she has with her boyfriend. I'm supposed to understand this, or I'm labelled a bitch. But would they expect a male boss to do the same? Of course not. So I just have to be the bitch and let them hate me. It's the only way to get things done. And that's so sad. I think that's so horrible, because that's what you see time and time again, is that successful women are labelled with the bitch instantly, or she's a hard ass, or she's really manly, or it's unfeminine. But it's that thing of sometimes trying to get it done and trying to be taken seriously seems to still really be an issue. And
does she suggest why women are like playing out that role? Why are they playing out that role with a female boss? What are they trying to do? Are they actually trying to undermine her?
Well,
or are they just making a mistake?
She's saying that women want to favour men at work she's basically saying that deep down, or that unfortunately, that while feminism has advanced the cause of millions of women, that many still think deep down it's necessary and advantageous to be unsisterly and trample all over their female colleagues in the scramble to get ahead at work. And that the women want to favour men at work by befriending them or trying especially hard to please them because they consider it to be the fastest way to get ahead. And then on the other hand, angering and alienating men by openly aligning yourself to other women colleagues at men's expense could also have negative consequences. So it's kind of basically, she's kind of highlighting a slightly no-win situation. That if you are sisterly and help other women, that the guys might not like that. They might see the women teaming up together. So you align yourself with men to get ahead, but then the women aren't going to like you for doing that either.
Well, I mean, I had one, I remember the first really serious female boss in my life was the director of radio here, and she had a pretty strong hold over things, and I mean, she wasn't particularly manly in the way that she did it, but she had an ability to control a situation. It was different from having a male boss, but the male attitude towards that, for me anyway, I can't speak for everybody, but I just went, okay, she's in charge.
Yeah, but
she's in charge, so let's just take it from there.
Okay, but see, you accepted it outright, and maybe that's why you got along so well, is that you accepted her position.
And I did get along very well with her.
Yeah, and it sounds that that's probably why. I mean, it's one of those things that I think it's unfortunate. You know, I constantly sort of notice and sort of wonder why it is that women can't help each other along more. And I think, you know, you instantly know which women at work will help you, and you instantly know which ones won't. And they very rarely work together.
What's at play here, though? What is being brought down by a woman trying to undermine? Because that's really, for my money, a woman not affording a female boss or leader are not imbuing them with the same authority or the same level of leadership that they're going to give to a man. Not affording them that is undermining them.
Absolutely.
So that's active. So you're not just doing that because you've made a mistake and you want to have a bit of a chat about Prada or something like that. You're proactively undermining them.
Yes, and I think...
So what's going on there?
Well, I think it's, you talked about the pack with the brothers, and I think that this is where it comes from, is I think men take pride in passing on their knowledge and mentoring. And I think women have yet to learn the pride and the satisfaction and the joy that comes from helping somebody along and mentoring them.
Yeah, because a younger guy for a well-balanced male is, in fact, your protege.
Yes. And not many women do that.
And you can be reflected through that. You can go, I taught him everything he knows.
Yeah.
Didn't I, son? Yes, you did. And it doesn't have to be your actual son, and men get a great kick. I get a great kick out of it.
Yeah, and I think really that this comes back to something you're talking about with mothers and daughters.
And it's good to have them around you, because you become presidential.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Hey,
we could learn from that. Maybe,
Yeah.
Maybe we just need to know that woman will treat us like a queen if we're going to help them out. I don't know. I mean, but because she talks about with mothers. And
it is fascinating.
It is fascinating because basically what she's talking about with mothers and daughters is that unfortunately an older woman's role in society is less valued by society and has less power in society than a younger, attractive woman. Just like an attractive woman has more power in society than a less attractive woman. So add attractiveness and age, and it starts to compound. And I think, it's a power struggle thing. So I think if a woman... I don't know. I'm sure it's just unfortunately that unhappiness within herself that doesn't want to let you get ahead, especially if you're younger and or more attractive.
Yeah, in other words, the biological condition of a woman.
Yes.
Is she able to have children? Does she look pretty? Does she look attractive? Is she irresistible?
The rivalry that starts from
That's
birth.
at play to a much greater degree than it is with men.
I think because of the way society pays value,
and also because men are
age and
reacting to it in that way as well.
Yeah, so long as I think society puts more value on a woman's attractiveness than what she has to say or her knowledge.
Maybe it's not just that society puts more value on it.
The women do as well.
But it's just there. So, you can't stop it. You may go on a training course not to look immediately at the pretty girl. You may take tablets to stop you looking immediately at the pretty girl. But when you walk into the room, who do you look at? The pretty girl.
No, but
So what are we going to do with that?
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. I mean, I just think, it's fascinating because when, you were talking at the start so much about mothers and daughters. And one of the big things, I mentioned it, the mothers criticize their daughter's hairstyle. And
what's going on there? Tell us about that.
Yeah, what Cher Height reckons is that basically that hair becomes such a weird focus of conflict between mothers and daughters because when girls are very small, most are cuddled, held, carried, embraced by their mothers, even if the mother gets annoyed. And then as children get older, the most common way the mother and daughter is intimate is when the mother brushes and styles their daughter's hair. So around the sort of age of 5 or 6 or whatever, they maybe don't hug and cuddle them as much, but they do their hair, and it's a time of affection and closeness. So that as a child enters teenage years, or maybe 12, 13 or whatever, or like it could be sooner, that all of a sudden it's like, I don't want you doing my hair. Yeah. I want to do my own hair.
In fact, I'm going down to the hairdresser and I'm going to get colour put into it.
All these things.
And not the colour you're thinking.
So the mother cares for the daughter's hair as a last outpouring of acceptable caressing, but also as a means of having some power over her daughter, and perhaps because of her own frustration with the denial of intimacy. So puberty, early teens, girls start to do their own hair. Mothers are left out only to comment and sometimes to criticize, which leads to fights. And, mothers are often the ones saying, your hair looks terrible that way.
I just think this is so fascinating and so completely 150,000 billion% true.
Right, so I mean,
fathers do not get into major battles with their sons on their hair.
Yeah, so
I might end up saying, do you know something? You're not going to be able to get through the customs and immigration with that haircut because you look like a convict, and the fact that you've got one side of your head blonde. He learnt, by the way, that it wasn't a good idea. But I'm not taking it personally. Do you know that? I don't give a shit, to be honest. I really don't. I might even get a laugh out of it. But I have seen women get highly exercised.
About hair.
And I'm
Yeah.
talking about 2 or 3 generations going back with women I've known.
Yeah, no, and I've seen it as well, and it's amazing. But she talks about all the different things of first place, second place, power struggles with mothers and daughters. But she says at core, she really thinks that the arguments between mothers and daughters over their hair is a repressed desire for the physical intimacy that has been lost. And I think that that's a really nice place to sort of realise it comes from.
Can you work on that?
Well, I suppose the minute you articulated that, I'm sorry that I pick at you, but like if a mother realised that, I'm sure there's mothers all around going, oh my God, I'm always picking my daughter about my hair. I never thought that it might be that I missed.
But if you also stopped
that
for a moment and went back and remembered what your own mother used to say to you about the mad colours that you had in your hair, the weird hairstyle, when you cut your beautiful hair.
Yeah, or why are you wearing it that way? It doesn't suit you. That kind of thing. So, it's a tricky one. I mean, she doesn't necessarily give the answers, but I always think that understanding where your fights and your niggles come from help you to choose to rise above it.
Well, can the farmer and the cowboy be friends? Can they?
I always hope so, Gerry.
Gerry Ryan